Here, and welcome to another Sunday morning coffee or tea with the candidate Facebook Live event. I'm really enjoying doing these. Good morning. It's great to have you with me. Say hello if you're here. Hope you have a nice, cozy cup of coffee or tea or something. I do. This morning, I am drinking a little bit of tea in between my coffees out of one of my favorite mugs, a Crater Lake mug that I bought at Crater Lake on a family trip there. And I'll say more about why I picked this mug this morning in a bit, because we're going to be talking later about the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. But first, I wanted to start out just by catching folks up a little bit on what's been happening on the campaign, and also to say that I hope if you're watching this, you and the people you care about are healthy and safe, and thank you for doing everything you can to help keep all of our communities safe by staying home, by masking up when you go out, and by keeping your non-essential trips to zero and your essential trips to the barest possible minimum. It really is helping. I'm so proud of Oregon and what we're doing, once again leading the nation in showing how we take care of ourselves and each other. And that leadership starts with policy, but it also starts with practice. And it's up to all of us to do our part of the practice piece. I know it's really, really hard to follow the shelter-in-place orders, and I want to especially acknowledge that it's harder for some than for others, right? And by that I mean some folks who are deemed essential workers and still need to go out and go to work every day, and therefore are at greater risk, and they're putting themselves at risk for the benefit of the rest of us. So thank you to all of you out there watching this who are first responders, who are healthcare workers, who are grocery store clerks and checkers, who work in pharmacies and hardware stores and garden centers, which are still open. Please, please, please stay safe. I hope your employers are protecting you. We have a special guest star this morning. I thought about closing the door and trying to keep him out of the room, but then you just hear him howl all through this video. So I let him in, and he's going to do what he's going to do. So there's my little cheese sauce doing what he does. Um, but I was saying a special thank you to those of you who are out doing your jobs that help make our lives a little easier and safer. Thank you to all of you. And to the rest of us who have jobs that are not deemed essential or that we're able to do from home, once again, please keep doing everything you can to protect yourself, the people you care about, and everyone in our community. By washing your hands, masking up, and keeping your trips outside of the house to the barest possible minimum. Um, all right, okay, not working. um, I also want to catch you up a little bit on what we've been doing on the campaign to try to stay connected to community and involved with all of you and reach out to as many voters as possible. One thing that is still in compliance with the shelter-in-place order in terms of going out is going out for exercise, and that's so important. I try every day to take at least one walk and or a bike ride, mostly just around my own neighborhood. And in doing that, I see other neighbors out working in their yards and gardens, taking their walks with their dogs and their little ones, or on their own. And we all are doing a really good job of giving each other a wide berth. Of course, with much less traffic, we can walk in safely, step off the sidewalk and walk in the street to give each other space. But what I'm really loving is how when we do that, we are still connecting more than ever, really. People are really making a point of making eye contact, saying hello, stopping for a minute to say, how are you doing? Everything going okay? It feels really good and connected, and an important way to build community. And something else that we're doing on the campaign to reach out to voters is, because we can't door knock or attend community events, we are phoning voters. Just about every day we have at least one person on the phones. I make voter calls several times a week, And first and foremost, just checking in to ask people if they're doing okay, if they have what they need, but also sharing a little bit with them about me, why I'm running, and what I want to do as your next county commissioner. It is an extraordinary time. When I started doing these Facebook Live events a month or so ago, I just couldn't imagine what it would feel like at this point a month on. And what I can tell you it feels like is it feels like a challenge. It feels scary, but it also feels really encouraging and fulfilling to be talking to so many of you and hear that people are doing well and helping each other out. If you want to be involved and be part of this campaign and this movement to connect with community, we'd love to have you. Please send us a message and we'll get you set up with a way that you can connect with your own personal networks, or you can be calling voters from some of our lists. I'd love to have you join us for that work as we head into the home stretch, 1 month to go before the May 19th primary election. So today, our theme, our topic I want to talk to you about is Earth Day. Coming up this week is the 50th anniversary of Earth Day. And I remember the first Earth Day, 1970. I was a kid. I went to a small school. I lived in Philadelphia at the time, and the school was in the suburbs, in the outskirts of Philadelphia, surrounded by woods with a creek running through the campus. It was an incredible experience and very much a rooted in nature experience. This was elementary school. And our science lessons were largely involved stomping around in the creek and turning over rocks and identifying plants and climbing trees. And then taking samples of what we found out in the natural world back to the classroom to learn and study them under a microscope and understand more about the natural world around us by being immersed in it. And one of the things in reviewing the history of Earth Day that I wanted to share with you was I looked back. Earthday.org is a great website with lots of great resource and information about the history of this important day in this movement. But I wanted to read a quote to you from Dennis Hayes, who was the organizer of the first Earth Day ever. And he is now the National Network's board chair. And he says, reflecting on Earth Day now, 50 years on, despite the amazing successes and decades of environmental progress, we find ourselves facing even more dire, almost existential set of global environmental challenges, from loss of biodiversity to climate change to plastic pollution, that call for action at all levels of government. And I take that very seriously, particularly that action at all levels of government. For those of you that have been following my campaign for the last year plus, you know that I talk about one of the greatest motivations for my running for this office is actually two motivations, and those are my twin grandsons, Ari and Leo. I am very concerned for their future. And that includes their future and what it holds for their ability to find affordable housing, for their ability to find meaningful work with living wages, but particularly, and since today we're talking about Earth Day and the history of Earth Day, I'm particularly concerned about their future when it comes to what kind of world, the health of the planet, the environment, and what kind of natural resources are going to be protected and preserved for them to enjoy and regard and respect, and that will support them. Because really, as I remember from being a little kid from the first Earth Day, the point of celebrating and honoring and protecting Earth is because it's our home. And our own personal houses, we would never stand for them to be polluted and degraded to a point where they were inhabitable. And we just can't do that with the planet either. It's just so important that we protect and preserve it. And that action at the local government level is something I take very seriously about, and I'm highly motivated to get to work as your next commissioner, to do everything I can to protect and preserve our natural resources, our environment, to mitigate against the climate change, impacts of climate change, and to slow the rate at which we are emitting pollutants down to as close to zero emissions as possible. There's so many ways and so many opportunities for local governments to be part of this climate change movement, from retooling our vehicle fleets at the county level, to looking at what kind of building materials we use in our capital projects, to, of course, and particularly what I want to mention is our county parks. We have almost 70 county parks. One of the most beloved is the Howard Buford Recreation Area, and within that Howard Buford Park is Mount Pisgah Arboretum. I worked at the Arboretum as their development director for a time, helping to shore up the financial resources to support that beautiful community treasure. And I'm really worried about the future of that organization, of the Arboretum. The Arboretum's fiscal plan relies on memberships, on fees for on-site workshops, and on the rental program there for the pavilion where people have their weddings and their family reunions. And of course, this entire coming season has had to be canceled. Additionally, for the first time ever, the Arboretum has had to cancel its Wildflower Festival, which brings thousands of people on site and gives people an opportunity to interact with one of our incredible local natural treasures. And the Arboretum is just one of many, many nonprofits in our community, but I'm particularly talking about them because it's near and dear to me as a place I worked, as a place where my daughter and son-in-law were married. They're the parents of those twin boys that I'm holding always in my mind in this campaign, this fight for their future. So the Arboretum is a really dear place to me. I know it's really important to all of you as well, and many of you love to go either hike the summit trail, walk along the river paths, explore the many, many trails there. But I want to implore you to please do what you can. Obviously, if you're out there hiking the trails, whether at Mount Pisgah Arboretum or any one of the many, many hiking trails in our community, that you practice safe distancing from other hikers, that you be respectful and kind to one another. But I also want to ask you to please do what you can to minimize your use of these parks and trails right now. I know that's really hard to do. We're all so in need of a nature therapy, and there's precious few other entertainment opportunities for us, right? But we have to be careful that we're not loving our parks to death. This has been a concern in my time working at the Arboretum long before the COVID pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic. Overuse of our county parks and hiking trails is a serious problem. It compacts the soil to have people hiking and walking. That's why it's so important to stay on the trails. The car traffic out to the Arboretum, of course, is of concern when it comes to impact on climate. So I'm asking you, please, to take good care of yourself, spend time in nature, enjoy the hikes, but also be mindful. Try to spread your time out if you have flexibility in your schedule to go at less crowded times of day and days of the week. Please do that. Do what you can to take care of our trails and our natural resources. Of course, many of our all of our state parks are closed under the governor's order, and so please respect that. I've heard from several entities and individuals that there are real problems with people parking outside of the barriers and then hopping the barriers to go in and hike. And the park is closed, and we need to respect that and honor that to keep everybody safe. So thanks for doing that, as hard as it is. So back to Earth Day, 50th anniversary of Earth Day. What can we do to celebrate? Never a more important year than this one to honor Mother Earth and celebrate the way we can. I came across a really exciting resource that I want to share with all of you that we can all do together. I learned that there is a City Nature Challenge 2020. You can go to, on Facebook, they have a page, City Nature Challenge 2020 Eugene Springfield. And this is a coordinated effort to get folks to do what we're calling a bio blitz in one day. So they're inviting folks in communities, in urban communities, and this is a coordinated worldwide effort, actually, to observe and identify as many species as possible in our urban communities. And I am so fortunate to have a really beautiful, modest-sized backyard and a front yard. And we do a lot of gardening. We have vegetables and fruit trees and berry bushes. And there's an awful lot of biodiversity just right here on our average-sized city lot. And I know that even those of you who are apartment dwellers or who live on smaller lots, there is biodiversity even on the tiniest little postage stamp sized lot. And so we're all being encouraged to help identify what is growing and living in our own backyards, quite literally. So again, please go to City Nature Challenge 2020 Facebook page and read about how you can be involved. And we're all going to participate in this Bio Blitz together as a way to celebrate Earth Day. And, you know, despite some of our best efforts, right, some of that biodiversity finds its way inside our homes. So some of that's invited if we have house plants, for example, but some of it isn't. I've been noticing the annual intrusion of sugar ants in my kitchen around the sink. Invariably, little creepy crawlies get in the house, and that's all part of our biodiversity too, that we can identify and name and help show the richness of the natural world around us and sometimes inside our homes, for better or worse. So I hope you'll all have a little fun participating in that. For those of you with kids at home and who are doing distance learning, I'm hoping many of the schools will be taking advantage of this worldwide day of action of Earth Day, of the 50th anniversary. More than 1 billion people worldwide a year are engaged through activities around Earth Day. It is the single largest civic engagement movement and event worldwide. And so I'm hoping many of the distance learning programs that the schools are doing, or if you're doing your own home learning program, that you'll go to earthday.org. They have all kinds of great activities that you can do with the family, with kids, or no matter how old of a kid you might be, to participate and be part of that and connect to the natural world and help us all identify and appreciate and honor the great biodiversity around us. As I mentioned, I'm drinking out of my Crater Lake mug today. I'd love to hear from you what some of your favorite state, national, or county parks are. Maybe in honor of Earth Day, we could start a thread going on the Facebook page, sharing some photos of trips or hikes or travels that we've taken around this beautiful state or here in Lane County to honor Earth Day. The origin of Earth Day really grew out of a movement of awareness that began with the publication of Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring. That book was published in 1962, which is the year I was born. And again, that first Earth Day, 1970, I remember quite well. And one of the issues that the first Earth Day focused on and talked a lot about was the pollution caused by having leaded gasoline. I don't know how many people remember, but there used to, as a matter of course, be lead in our gasoline. And then there came a time where you could choose either leaded or unleaded gas at the pump. And to me, this is a perfect example of why public policy matters and how policy can impact climate. It's not enough to rely on individuals and education and outreach campaigns to ask individuals to not put leaded gas in their car. We needed the public policy that actually made it unlawful to have leaded gasoline, to recognize the negative public health impacts of the emissions of leaded gasoline, and through policy remove that option. I know for me, and likely many of you watching this, we're frustrated, saddened, and frankly angered at our federal administration and the rollbacks that are happening of environmental protections. The tiny little bright spot I will offer you is that many of these rollbacks of environmental protections that are happening at the federal level are being done through administrative action, not through congressional action. And the reason I offer that as a bright spot is the imperative that we get new leadership in the White House tags directly to that, in that when we have a president who respects our earth and our natural resources, then they also can take administrative action to reinstate these critical environmental protections. And so that's a little bit of a hopefully a bright spot of sorts to remind us in these really bleak and scary times that what's coming from the feds is as abhorrent as it is. We do have an opportunity to reverse those trends if we take the action that we need to take in November to do that. On the local level, again, because the statement about elected leadership at all levels is so important for protecting our climate, I am 100% committed to taking bold steps and to using my leadership, my collaborative work style, and my values to bring the change that we need to Lane County. We have real opportunity with the Climate Action Plan currently in development, and I will add with also, for the first time ever, a Housing Action Plan. Housing is environmental work, right? Where we site housing, what kind of building materials we use, how we develop our neighborhoods to ensure that they're walkable and bikeable, to reduce car travel. These are all really critically important issues that tie together and are part of creating a safer, greener, healthier planet, and therefore improving health outcomes. Again, I've been running on a public health equity platform because that is, to my mind, the single most important framework that we can operate within to address both the obvious current threat of communicable disease, but also to look at issues around housing, around climate, around economic development. We need to look at those issues from an equity perspective and how they relate to public health and what kind of health outcomes we're seeing as a result of those public policies. So I'm absolutely committed and excited to bring that public health equity focus and lens to the Board of County Commissioners. The other piece that it means to bring a public health equity lens is that I will always be asking who was involved in making this decision, who will benefit from this policy, who will be harmed by this policy. Those are three really important questions to ask when you're committed to a public health equity lens, and those are the questions I will always be asking as your county commissioner. Well, once again, as happens every week, I'm always amazed that it's just not that hard to fill half an hour visiting with all of you and sharing a bit of what's on my mind. So in these last few minutes, I want to say a reminder, Earth Day, 50th anniversary this week. Go to earthday.org for great ideas about how you can be active and engaged on the 50th anniversary and year-round in this important movement. I want to invite you to the City Nature Challenge 2020. Go to that Facebook page to see what you can be doing this week to be part of that and to recognize and enjoy the biodiversity all around us, even in our urban communities. And I want to remind you that voting registration, make sure your voter registration is current with your current address. So the ballot you get has the candidates for the districts in which you live. You can go to SOS for Secretary of State, sos.gov, and click on elections and follow the links to make sure your voter registration is up to date. Ballots will be going out along with your voter pamphlet that has all the state and local races in it at the very end of April, beginning of May. So really important, April 28th is the deadline to get your voter registration updated. So please be sure you do that. Tell all your friends, your family to check their voter registration, make sure it's up to date. Next week at 10:30 Sunday morning here on Facebook Live, I want to talk to you more about what I mean when I talk about public health equity. And in particular, I want to talk about the disparate impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic on different communities. I have been reviewing this important report put out by Centro Latinoamericano that talks about the specific impacts of COVID-19 on immigrant and Latino communities in Lane County. The NAACP has published a list of important considerations and sharing about the disparate impact of COVID-19, the shelter-in-place order, and pandemic recovery on African American communities. And I also will want to talk with you quite a bit about how women are uniquely affected, not only by the COVID-19 pandemic, but by the kinds of policies that we need to put in place moving forward to ensure better protections against future disparate health outcomes for least resourced marginalized populations and communities, which include but are not limited to our elders who are living in care facilities, people with physical and mental disabilities, women, Asian Pacific Islander communities, our African American and Latino neighbors. So this is a very serious subject and something that I take very seriously, that I look forward to talking with you about next week. So we'll be talking about digging more into what public health equity means, particularly in this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to hear from you about your thoughts, how you're being affected and impacted. I have lots of ideas and information I want to share with you about public health equity and how we can best move forward to build a safer, healthier, more just community for all. Because as I was listening to an interview with someone the other day, they had a great comment. We are all in this together, but we are not all in the same boat. So I want to hear more about the boat you're in and how it's affecting your experience of this pandemic. Share with you more about my ideas moving forward for our post-COVID-19 Lane County. Thank you so much again for joining me today, or if you're watching this video later after our Facebook Live broadcast, thank you for taking the time to watch, to listen. And please, I'm doing this to connect to community, so I would love to hear from community. I want your feedback, I want your questions, I want to know what's on your mind. You can go to the website laurietrieger.com, click the Get Involved tab. It sends an email directly to me if you fill out that message box. I read every single one. You can send us a message here on Facebook. And I hope to see everybody back here again 1 week from today, 10:30 next Sunday on Facebook Live. Until then, wash your hands, take a deep breath, get outside, take good care, be gentle and patient with everyone around you, and most especially with yourself. Thanks so much, everyone.